How's it, folks? Hello, world. We're back. This is Moving the Needle podcast. Yeah, I'm your host, Andrew Yetling, but you are not here for me. I think you've heard enough from me. I've got a legend with us. He's a legend after the events, he's a legend at the events, and he had an illustrious career, but he's also one to speak openly about how hard the challenges after a career going into normal life. It's the godfather of freeride and slopestyle in the UK scene. And I remember watching him do some of the craziest things I've seen on a bike at that time, like that tail whip drop, I think at Whistler. I was there on site as far as I can tell. It's none other than Grant Chopper Fielder. Hope I've given you
Hooray!
the intro that you deserve.
That was a good one.
How are we doing, my man?
That was a
Was it
really.
decent?
First of all, I just want to say thank you. That was a pretty cool intro. I didn't realise you actually knew who I was. So yeah.
What,
But,
the history or currently?
well, a bit of both. But no, I appreciate that, dude. It's,
What did you just think some random super fan want to do an interview with you?
Yeah, who's this Needles guy? I've seen him everywhere. He's been on Red Bull TV. But no, it's yeah, I appreciate that. That was quite a nice intro. Yeah, the godfather of the UK slopestyle freeride scene. I suppose I am because it was still pretty early then, so I'll claim that. Yeah, cheers. Yeah.
Is it kind of surreal because you really were, like, you can hear Ollie talk about it, Matt Jones, these, especially someone like Matt Jones, he's a lot younger than you, to have known of you and looked up to you. That's probably when he started watching videos and things.
Yeah.
Like, you've obviously gone through a lot in your life, and we can relate on retiring and going through the ups and downs of that. But it's quite surreal to think, okay, that's not who I am anymore. But damn, I did do something pretty special for the sport back in UK and the world.
Oh god, yeah. Like it's quite funny because there's a lot of comparing to today, especially. Lots of the kids know about slopestyle at a very young age, but looking back, I actually started quite late, but at the time it was still new. So I started competing at 16, which is still young, but compared to basically, I was at Big White not so long ago in Canada, and I saw 8-year-old kids doing triple truck drivers, and I'm like, Jesus, like the level now compared to back then has changed so much. But yeah, I was about 18 when I started to realise, hang on a minute, I could actually turn this into a bit of a career now. And I was travelling all over the place, so it was all magazine. Everything was magazines back then and VHS. So everything felt really exclusive, and you had to be patient and wait for like a flyer to come out saying there's a contest coming. Not like, oh, there's a contest this weekend. Oh, go, let's go. It was all planned. Everything was. So we spent a lot of time planning our year out, and it was really fun. And I used to travel the UK with mostly just my brother and a couple of other mates that were into BMXs and things. And it was, like I said, it was still quite new. We didn't really know what it was. It was still seen as a bit of a sideshow. So there'd always be like four cross events, dual races, or cross country races, and there'd always be the clowns to the side, and that would be us. And we didn't really sort of think it would sort of mount to anything, but here we are. But yeah, so we're doing that for so many years until it actually became something massive. So yeah, to be a part of it from almost the start of it was probably where I was labelled a legend, the Godfather, because I was probably the only person that brought the BMX style into mountain biking. Even though I didn't have a BMX background, I was very influenced by BMX massively, and I think a lot of mountain bikers back then were. And that's kind of where it all stems. Yeah.
But there wasn't really a dirt jumper making a living before you in the UK, right? Like,
There was
was Martin Ashton maybe some of, he was doing the trials thing and the shows.
yeah. So there was Mark.
Like, at that era, was there people before you? Like on the dirt jump slopestyle scene?
Yeah, there kind of was. That's what I mean by us being the circus, like the clowns. There was. I'll bring another clown into it who was also a legend in my eyes and everybody else's. It's Steve Gill. So Gilly was a massive inspiration.
Yes.
He was like the misfit of a real corporate team, like the Animal PlayStation team back then, the Animal Orange team. So there was like the Kitchen Brothers, Tim Ponting. Um, I can't remember the other names, but yeah, Martin was also a part of that sort of cluster of guys, and Steve was there. He was a bit more of the, yeah, like I said, a misfit, and he was the only one I kind of
He's a full
liked.
on misfit, isn't it?
Yeah, because he
Yeah,
really
I
didn't
remember him.
care.
He would be doing tricks in four cross and duel,
Yeah,
like he's just his own guy,
yeah,
right?
exactly. And he lived, and I couldn't believe it. He lived like 35 minutes from my house, and although it was, the scene was still so fresh, and no one really knew where it was going, but Steve made this thing, and I don't know what it was, but it was just so freaking cool. I've never looked up to someone as much as I had Gilly, even today, because he was so cool. He had all the best components on his bike. He looked cool. He was wearing Vans, and wearing Vans on a mountain bike back then was like, wow, you are really cool. And yeah, it's just, he was kind of my role. He was my role model, and every time we saw him, it inspired me to just want to do what he did. But I didn't realize it was going to turn into a job ever. But yeah, we just continued to do it, and I don't really know what happened. It just snowballed into something really cool.
But where's the first memory of a bike? You say it's with your brother. I've
Yeah,
obviously, luckily, also just remember riding with my brother
yeah,
mostly, which is quite awesome to think back now, and we
yeah,
still get to do it. So I got into it through my late dad and his friends and our family friends. Like they went to the Olympics actually for XC. And so they were in the scene when like mountain biking started in South Africa, but that was racing, right?
yeah.
So that came first. So I kind of understand that side, and we'd get dragged, not dragged, we'd want to go on weekends after their training ride. We'd get taken into the woods and it would be our turn to ride mountain bikes. Where's your first memory of bikes? Is it this skate park style stuff and then into the woods to the dirt jumps
I mean,
afterwards? Like
yeah.
what came first?
My dad was very into motorbikes. The whole Fielder family was. I've got four. I call them my five brothers. I've actually got four other cousins that are all boys that are all into motorbikes. But my actual blood brother is my brother Ollie, and we've always been into bikes, tampering and tinkering in the garage, just making these Frankenstein bikes and things. And it was just fun, and we didn't really sort of think nothing of it. And then I remember it, your stereotypical kid finding a brick and a piece of wood, and that was the first time in my life when I reckon I was about 8 when I started to compete against my brother out the front. You know what it's like. If you can kick the ball, I can kick it further, that kind of thing. But this thing in particular
Is
was,
he younger or older?
so
This
my brother's
brother, your brother?
18 months older than me.
That
So
makes
we've
sense. So you're
always,
the younger brother.
yeah, so we always had this
Yeah,
rivalry,
yeah.
and I always had someone to sort of catch, if you know what I mean. And the one time where I thought I could catch you here was when we made this little jump. So we did have a brick, and we had this old kitchen cupboard door which was just on the side, and I don't know how, but at 8 years old it's quite hard to do a bunny hop. But for some reason I managed to just get the right position on my bike, and we used to take pictures of it, wait for them to get printed off by my parents like 2 weeks later, and I'd look at it and I'd be like, hang on a minute, if that's the angle of the jump, sorry, if I go that way, if that's the angle of the jump, I should be there, but I was up here, and I couldn't, and like I was instantly attracted to the physics of it, and I was like, I must be pretty good. And it was so funny. Like
At eight.
yeah, at 8 years old, I was like, I think I'm pretty good at this, but I didn't think much of
I'm
it.
shit hot.
Yeah, I'm really good at this. So I started to like get air in the air. So I just thought, okay, I'm going to start pursuing this a little bit more. And then the Frankenstein bike started to get better, and my uncle bought my brother and I uh, a white and blue rally burner, which was one of the original sort of BMX dirt bikes sort of thing. And he got us two of them, and one of them was really crap, but the other one was kind of salvageable. So we managed to break all this other bike up and make one, and we just used that. Like, and that was just all we used for the jump bike out the front. We did that for years with loads of different bikes, catalog bikes, and we used to use these really crappy old cow horns, you know, the chav bars, like you're riding like this on the edge of your bars, and our bikes were just crap, but we were riding them really well. So that was my first actual memories of actual biking, if you know what I mean. Incredible.
It's cool. I guess
It's
it
really
is cool
nostalgic,
to like
actually. I'm sorry.
look back.
Yeah, it is.
I'm just literally thinking of the couple bricks and a plank or two in the road, and we had quite a few friends. Like, it was back in the time where the kids would come out the house after school or homework was done, and then you would cause, havoc till you were all told to go in for dinner. And the bikes were a big scene back there. I see a little bit. It's like it's coming back, which we'll maybe chat about later, because you've done a bunch of that school coaching and stuff. But that's pretty cool to think back. It's like proper simpler times. And then you just got hooked on it. Hey, you were just at the skate park, and isn't there a time where you finished school and you didn't plan to go pro, but you just went and rode your bike while other people were working?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it wasn't a conscious decision.
No, it was exactly that. It was so where I live in Southampton, it's very flat. It's so busy. There's like 250,000 people living in the city, and we're just on the outskirts, and it's really heavy football. Everyone's like soccer for the rest of the world. And that's all. But that's all my friends wanted to do, and that's all I wanted to do. But I had the most enjoyment of riding to football training. And there was a route which is just off. It was a bit off Camber, and I always remember I used to train over in Testwood Rec, which was probably about half a mile away, not far, but plenty of places. Well, plenty of time where I could catch some air on the way, and I had more fun doing that. And over the years and years pass, and then I'm at the last year of my of secondary school, so I've just turned 16, and I've just collected my GCSE results, and then I'm starting to ride the skate park, and that's because there's a skate park that just been built, and it was perfect timing, and all my friends are saying, "Hey, Chop, where are you going to uni? Where are you go? You going to college or anything like that?" And I'm just looking at them like scared, like, what do you mean? What, have I got to continue like learning stuff? And then I'm talking to my other friends. Oh yeah, I'm an apprentice. I'm learning plumbing, or I'm going into carpentry or something. They're all getting a trade, and there's just me sat there thinking, shit, I don't know what to do. I was hoping I could just ride down the skate park forever. I had zero concept of work. But my dad eventually said, "Come on, Grant, we need to get you a trade." So his friend took me under his wing as an electrician for a few years. But obviously, every day I was riding my bike up the skate park. But yeah, it was a very sort of scary point where I didn't have school to go to every day. There was no commitment, and it was a very strange part of my life, actually. So yeah, that's when it all started to change, I guess. Yeah.
And like, being one of the earlier ones, there wasn't exactly a path ahead of you, right? Like in downhill and racing, there's a path.
Exactly.
Like, I already went to world champs as a junior.
Yeah.
But there was less of that competitions and stuff for you.
Yeah.
So it's not a clear decision to even go, okay, even though it's a risk, I could go pro, slopestyle, dirt chop. People are like,
and I think
what do you
that
mean?
was
You're riding
part of the
kids'
problem.
Bikes. Like, that's not a career.
Yeah, that was I guess part of the problem, because there was no direction. There was no one to look up to. If say I started 10 years later, then I would have kind of had a bit of an idea on where I was going. But because it was completely new for the UK, there were people like John Cowan and Timo Pritzel and all those guys doing it, but it just felt so unattainable, you know. But in the UK, I was completely lost. But I just thought, hang on a minute, maybe there is something. Maybe it is. Maybe I could just create this my own thing. And these little, like I said, there was all these little contests popping up here, there, and everywhere alongside four cross races, and there was more and more of them. So I thought, okay, right, the industry is they obviously want to see more of this. Let's show them what I can do. And that was back in 1999. That was last century. Like it's a long time ago. And I remember I remember the first contest was when I was 16. Was when I left school. And this is what did give me direction. It was an event on the Isle of Wight, and it was called White Max. And I went over there with all my friends, and I won it. And that was against BMXers as well. And I remember Luke Smith, DMR rider, was there. And once we sort of bumped into each other after I won the contest, and he gave me a little nudge and looked back and gave me a wink, and I was like, I want to be that guy. That's exactly who I want. And he was the first person who I thought, right, this guy's made me want to pursue this now. So yeah, it was an incredible moment. Ollie Wilkins was there as well, and I beat him, and he remembers it. So yeah, it was good
he
time.
famously said you crushed his pro slopestyle and dirt jump dreams
I probably
on
did,
the regular.
but now he's crushed
you
me.
broke
with his
that
style.
man. His soul is with his stuff. Yeah, exactly. He throws it back at everyone with his steez.
He does, yeah.
And the amount of dirt covers he's got.
Exactly.
However, I think a little bit of him died back then.
Yeah, I think
his dreams.
I think I did that to a lot of people.
Crushed him a little bit.
Yeah, I remember I was on another podcast and I mentioned that my nickname was Chopper, and I mentioned that I was just mopping up everywhere. So I was nicknamed Mopper for a little bit.
But Mopper would be better than Chopper.
I think
Why
so, yeah.
Chopper? Because chop in my slang term is like, well, maybe not twat, but like,
is it?
That's quite a good term.
Well, maybe I am a bit of
chop
a twat sometimes, but no.
Don't be a chop. Don't be a.
Is it?
Yeah, but we all are. Yeah, chopper.
But no,
like don't be a chop.
So yeah,
my South African slang.
I got called Chopper for there's no decent reason behind it whatsoever. It was my brother gave me this nickname Chopper just because he thought it was funny. It's
out of nowhere, just random.
Out of nowhere. So yeah, my brother's a bit wacky like me. He's just got this crazy, vivid imagination, and he'll just say what he thinks, and it's so funny to be around. And he started
awesome.
He started calling me Jurgen, and then he started calling me Snake, then Jalopy, then Granny, and all these different names lasted not just for like a night, like each one lasted for months. And then he called me Apache, like for some stupid reason. We were really into G.I. Joe little figures and things. And then he just thought, oh, Chopper is an Apache. Let's stick with that. And that is honestly how I got my name.
Oh, like a chopper helicopter.
Yeah, awful. So then every time someone asks me, how did you get the name Chopper? I just say, oh, my mum nicknamed me a Chopper because I spend most of my time in the air. It's just easier. Because then it just sounds better. So I'm going to go with that. Yeah, my mum called me Chopper, yeah.
But it, like reading your name on my phone, like Grant Chopper Fielder.
I know.
Like, it just, is it because it's been for so long or because it works? Like,
I don't know.
I have people hear my nickname, like at the golf course.
Yeah.
These awesome gentlemen that work there. And they, oh, sorry, I said Needles. I said, so what's the problem? He's like, no, Mr. Nietling. I said,
yeah,
dude, my mom calls me Needles. Like, it's just going to stick, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's not derogatory, but I guess it works. And Chopper seems to work.
Dude, it's hilarious because I've been sat in negotiating.
The slang for chop is not great. I'm just saying.
Okay,
so that's why I think it maybe
know.
sits quite good.
Yeah.
He is a bit of a chopper, you know?
Yeah. I hear you. Okay, that's fair. But no, it's funny because I'll be sat
so have you had some contracts?
Oh yeah, so I'll be sat in these meetings like negotiating contracts and things. And normally when that happens, you'd expect to be called by your first name because it's quite serious. And then they just say, "Okay, thanks, Chopper," and it's like, That's my name now. That's what I'm known as in the industry. Yeah. It's funny, but it works. So that's what I love about mountain biking.
I would assume the magazines, like all your magazine coverage, probably just had like eventually it'd just be Chopper, right?
Yeah.
Like you lost your first and last name,
yeah, exactly.
Right?
So I also get a bit annoyed about it as well because just as social media was taken off, it was quite hard to find me because most of my names, you type in Chopper on Google or something, it would come up with like Harley Davidson or a helicopter. So like, it was kind of a weird position to be in because you obviously needed exposure everywhere, and you wanted people searching your names. But that's another story. I was like, just call me Chopperfielder and ditch the Grant, and then it kind of started to work. So I was like, okay, so that was my stage name, I guess. Yeah, still is.
Like Tiger Woods.
Exactly.
You know what his first name is?
Isn't it?
You know what it is?
I can't think of a funny name.
It's Aldrich.
It can't
It's
be.
Aldrich.
Is it honestly?
It is.
No way.
I've always forgotten it, and then I've kept researching it, and hey, if I'm wrong, someone tell me, but it's
I actually
Aldrich.
thought it was Tiger.
Yeah, so not as bad as, no, like, it's not.
Wow.
I'm going to Google it now.
Yeah, I would have thought his name
Wow.
was Tiger.
Some
I thought it
wild
was Tiger
stuff
or
comes
like
up when you do Tiger Woods.
Tyrone or something.
Aldrich. Aldrich Tont Woods.
Aldrich.
Dude, so you got out there lucky. Yeah. No wonder he doesn't want that name.
Yeah, that's a bit different, isn't it?
Oh, next up on the tee, million-time major winner, Aldrich Tont Woods. It's not going to work, is it?
No,
Tiger's a beast,
not
you know.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, so Chopper's like your alter ego.
Yeah, well,
right? And it was really,
yeah.
especially Afterlife. You've mentioned that, like, it's your cycling personality,
yeah,
identity,
I guess so,
if you will.
Yeah,
which is obviously a dangerous game.
I think it's good because, yeah, you'd see it at home. I mean, look at that for starters. It's. I like to keep my biking separate from being at home. I've got a family. I've got 2 little girls, and if you come to my house, you would never know I ride bikes, and I kind of like that in a way. So, but if you go out into the garage, like obviously it just turns into the Chopper shrine kind of thing. But yeah, I don't want to bring my family into what I do because I kind of like that alter ego sort of separate. It's like I put on my cape when I go out, you know. It's like my Batman costume is just, well, my Chopper hat or something. Do you know what I mean? Like I like that.
But that's post having a family, I would assume, in retirement. But do you think you didn't have 2 versions of yourself back when things were like
I've
going
always
well?
done that. I've always done that. I mean, yeah.
You have
I've
always
done it. Yeah, I've always separated it. So if you turn up to the house, there wouldn't be a picture of me doing a big tabletop or something. You know what I mean? Like I'd have the odd poster up in my bedroom when I was like 15, 16, but I've never had pictures of me up. Unless it was in my garage, everything's in my garage. Nothing's in my house to do with bikes.
I'm the same.
Oh yeah,
yeah. I'm the same.
Why do you think that is? Though?
Yeah, I just separate it. I just heard it from somewhere. Like you leave, like it becomes a job. And then I was listening to a lot of people saying, "Well, I go to work, or I go to the course to practice, or I go riding, and then when I come in the garage, I leave my stuff there." And especially when you start a family, and you leave that baggage there in the garage, and you walk in.
Yeah.
And in a weird way, you walk into a different life because
Yeah.
you have to be a different person as an athlete.
It's crazy, isn't it?
And it's quite tough to have that balance. So I try to practice that and say, okay, I am the selfish athlete. But when I come in the door or I leave my stuff in the garage and the shrines and the posters and the bikes there, and then my house, even at a bachelor level, there were some helmets because it was quite cool for art.
Yeah, of course.
But I just left everything in the garage to try separate it.
Yeah.
So I related to you and I saw that in the documentary.
Yeah. That's kind of, I think for me, I kind of need that because I don't want to get too stuck in it because I won't pay attention to my family, I guess, you know. I don't really understand that part of my brain, but I've just done it all the time, you know. But no, it's interesting.
What, obsessive part?
Yeah,
or what
just separating Chopper and Grant, say. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's interesting. I always find things like that. Yeah. I love the psychological side of anything. But if I start going into it, if I try to explain it, it makes 0 sense. I'm not an expert.
So you love being aware of it, and it plays a huge part.
But I don't know why. So
being able to articulate it is tough.
Yeah, I'm quite hard. I find it difficult to articulate quite a lot of things, to be honest, because I wouldn't say I'm the brightest of people, but I know what I'm doing. But to try and explain things like that, the psychological side of things, I'm always fascinated by it. But yeah, that, for example, is quite an interesting subject. But yeah, that's probably another podcast, isn't it? So
Well, we mix it up. This podcast has no rules. That's why I've started a podcast. No bosses and no rules, but also to give us time to maybe figure out how to articulate some of the things
Yeah,
we're thinking or been through, to be ourselves.
yeah,
I was listening to a fascinating podcast with Adam Cincerillo, and to hear him talk, if you give someone 2 hours or an hour or just longer form than a quick interview,
yeah,
even if you don't agree with them or you think they were not a nice person or they're an egotistical sportsman, like if
yeah,
you give them time, you can kind of see where they're coming from
yeah,
and
yeah. I hear.
understand them.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's also what I wanted to do. And I think that documentary called High Stakes,
That's right.
what was the
Yeah,
name of it?
that's a good little plug there,
I
actually.
think it's I think it's brilliant because it was long enough to give a real understanding of the highs and lows of a sport,
Yeah,
which that's like you say, the psychological side of what we go through, and,
yeah,
and those references to war I've used before.
yeah.
Like it's not for everyone to go through these ups and downs. Like
Absolutely
they're
not.
they're
And
crazy,
I
man.
think I'm not trying to plug this documentary, but I do feel like it come out at the wrong time because COVID, like, there was no big, there was no promotional activity for it. It was just watch this. It's pretty cool. But I feel like I got so many messages to say thank you so much for, like, I thought I was the only one experiencing this, and like some big names as well. And like maybe it did come across well. I feel like I could always add some things to it, but basically what I wanted from that documentary was to tell people that our lifestyle it can be difficult, and there's so many different strands to it. So I included, in my opinion, all the right people. So I included Matt Jones. uh, the reason being was because he was competing. He was at a point where he was crashing quite a lot. He was winning some big events, but he was kind of at a point like, fuck, I don't know if I want to keep doing this. This is pretty gnarly. So I included Matt because of his transition to YouTube, which is what a lot of people are doing. So that was the YouTube, the social media kind of box ticked. I wanted to include Anton Thielander, who's a Swedish former Red Bull rider, incredible rider, but he was playing mind games with himself a lot, and he had a very similar outlook of contests as what I did. So he went there to do really well and win, but he wasn't. So that can play on you. And he was a more updated version of myself, and you could see it in his riding. He was like, I'm just at the events now. And I feel like he was just clinging on to the lifestyle rather than the competitive side. So he was experiencing what I had. So I wanted to hear it from him. So that was ticked. And then you've got Manon Carpenter, who won the world champs, like, to just basically stopping. Like it was like she hit maximum. Then what? Like, what do I do now? Do I keep chasing it, or I'm like, oh, I've completed it now. I'm done. But you could see she was, she was holding tears in, and you could see it. That really hurt because I was there in the house as we were interviewing her, and yeah, you don't realize how hard it hits someone, even though they're like retiring. They don't want to really, but they feel like it's the right thing to do. So yeah, I included Manon from that side, that she hit. She maxed out and then just dropped off because it was getting too dangerous. What's she chasing? She's completed it. And then you've got Martin Ashton, who was he was like Mr. Personality, like the greatest guy who I've ever met to ride a bike, paralyzed from doing something he loves. So going from riding this massive swell, everything's getting brilliant and better and better, to just boom, can't do it anymore. So I wanted to hear his views of how he's been affected, and obviously, yeah, you could imagine how dark that got. And yeah, so I wanted to sort of touch on kind of every aspect of almost like what's next and how do you cope with it. And there was really no outcome. I think how I dealt with it, and when I say dealt with it, not competing anymore, and sort of, as you know what they say, every athlete has a shelf life, and when you're near the end of that shelf life, it gets freaking scary, dude. And it's like, shit, this is the only thing I know. What on earth can I do next? And yeah, so yeah, it got pretty dark for me, and I think it got dark for a lot of everyone else that was featured. But eventually, you will find a way out. Yeah, it's watch it. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, they say athletes die twice.
Yeah, I agree.
And
Totally.
don't you think that sums up
Yeah,
a lot of what you spoke about? I don't
yeah,
think it's just the gentlemen and the ladies in that show.
yeah. It's
One of the
in
most
general.
popular podcasts was Soderstrom
Yeah,
early on, and he really spoke out, and he was open with his struggles. And I think from athletes to everyday people that maybe don't race at a high level,
mm,
they think the athletes get to maybe an elite level and it's so easy for them, and they're these special type of humans.
yeah,
And I'm less inclined to agree with that, because I just think we're all going through our own struggles, and
mm,
people relate to hearing, shucks, people at the top of their industry and sport are still going through everyday struggles
yeah,
and struggling with these things. So like more people speaking about it, like you doing a documentary,
yeah,
being so raw,
yeah,
showing tears.
yeah,
Also, and technically as a man showing tears, like, oh, that's taboo. You
yeah,
can't do
dude.
that. Especially in a sport like slopestyle, it's like, well, and sport, you can't show weaknesses, because
No,
then your competitor have an edge.
yeah,
So we never used to speak about mental health or going to therapy.
yeah, yeah. It
And
was
now it's being more accepted, which is healthier.
yeah, it was something that I really need to sort of touch base on, because there was a lot of people around me sort of dropping out, and I'm never hearing from them again. And you know, hearing some pretty horrible stories and what they're going through, just in like life in general, and where they've hit rock bottom. And that was kind of where I was at. And I honestly, yeah, I got to a point where I wanted to end it all. Genuinely, I was at a point where I just wanted to just think, you know what, sod it. And I won't go into detail, but it got dark, dude. And I was the only thing that kept me sort of wanted to stay alive was my youngest daughter, because I just thought, I've been brought up from I've been very loved from my family, from both my parents. They both split up when I was about 14, but I understand all that now. But at the time, it sort of hit me. But I've always been very well looked after. And I haven't experienced like slumming it. I've always been looked after financially. I have, but I I I couldn't let my daughter down. Absolutely not. And that was the only thing that kept me going. Um, I went through a divorce. I lost my house. Yeah, I lost everything. And yeah, I was in a very, very dark place. And I didn't have any support, because no one, no one was going through what I was going through. I couldn't, no one could relate to it. It was so weird. It's not like, you can totally see why soccer players, football players, like turn to alcoholics or whatever, because like
100%.
they're
Yeah,
like,
yeah. I've
shit,
watched the documentary on
what?
sportsmen and alcohol. Yeah.
Yeah, and this was all going through my mind, and I was like, shit, I've got nothing I can look at to for
Do you think
like,
it's them? It's numbing the pain, isn't it?
yeah.
It's like a distraction to
I
numb the
think
pain and the
that's
grief. Like they're going through a grieving
yeah,
process.
that's exactly it. And because obviously our sport is still so young, there was nothing to look up to, or there was no help. Like, what do I do now? Like, shit, I'm not gonna win big events anymore. Like, but I want to. But I was in such a mess, dude. I didn't know what to think. And there was, yeah, like I said, there was nowhere to look. So that was when I started to, moving forward a few years. That was when this documentary. I had to make something to help other guys, because it was horrible to go through. But yeah, I managed to pull out. Come out the other end, and it was a hell of a ride, dude. But yeah,
Oh no, it sounds it.
yeah,
And this like all those tough things happened at the same time because you lost your stepdad, correct? And so what came first? Like you decided to retire, or you just kind of your shelf life had come, so you were sort of forced into retiring?
Yeah,
Like, what was the decision like walking away from
I'm.
competitive sport?
Oh, it was the toughest thing ever. It was. I had so from 1999, which does seem like a life, like forever ago. From 99 to 2004, I won every single contest I entered. I came second in one, which really peed me off. And that Mike Smith beat me actually. That was at NAS, and he did this big flat spin. I was like, "Yeah, you can win. That's fine." But deep down, I was fuming. So yeah, and then I went over to the States. I won Cowan's Backyard Jam, and that was against all the big guns, and that was a massive
Maybe
turning
don't
point.
gloss over that one.
All
That's
right.
Yeah, let's not gloss over that. Maybe this is a good segue
Yeah.
to gloss into the career span and
Yeah.
then the
Okay,
retirement,
cool.
because when you had this crazy career rock style
Yeah.
star shit,
Yeah, it was mega, and
there was a lot of positives to it, right?
yeah, there was, and this is probably why it made me. This is probably why I ended up going from one extremely high to the opposite. Like that's why I think that's probably why I did go as low as I did, because I did come from nothing to something like pretty rapidly as well, and that was kind of hard to like accept coming back out of it. So I went over to the US in 2004, and that was a massive contest. It was the first time I ever travelled abroad. I never left the UK, and everyone was there. It was straight. I think Berkeley was there. Paul Bass, Zinc, all the big free ride names. They were all there. Chemical was there, and I just rocked up. This kid from Southampton, baggy jeans. I had a few sponsors at the time, and yeah, I was riding for Animal.
Were you wearing
Yeah,
Vans?
I was wearing Vans. Yeah, I was wearing. Ah, was I? Yeah, I must have been. That's all I've ever worn. I wore Etnies one year. That was yeah. Yeah. But yeah. So I went over to the US with Ross Tricker, former DMR team manager, rider. Yeah, and I beat them all. And it was at John Carroll's backyard dirt jump jam thing, and I beat them all. And at the time, it was kind of, in my opinion, it was regarded as the biggest mountain bike dirt jump contest in the world, because it was all the biggest names were there. The jumps were freaking awesome, and I won that. So in my head, I was like, yeah, I'm going to be like the unofficial world champion. That's what I'm going to call myself. So I kind of went with that. Like, yeah, I've just beaten all my heroes, so I must be like one of the best. And then got home, I cashed in my $1,500 check, which at the time was like insane money. How have I just got that much money for doing like bar spins and tail whips and stuff? This is amazing. I'm getting an extra bonus. And then the following year, I crashed in really bad during a demo, and that's in the documentary as well. But I landed on my handlebars. I was trying this big 360. I was in Portugal. Sorry, let me start again. I was in Portugal with Lance McDermott, who was a bit of a ledge at the time, upcoming rider, and Timo Pritzl, who was one of my German heroes. He was in New World Disorder films, all that. And yeah, I did the over-rotated 360, landed on my handlebars, and I got sent to this really crappy Portuguese hospital in an ambulance on my own. And yeah, and they gave me an ultrasound when I got there. Bear in mind, I'm in excruciating pain. I thought like my guts would have been pushed out my back. That's how bad the force was. And they gave me a paracetamol and said, "No, you're fine. Go home. you'll be fine." And then
Sleep it off.
yeah, mate. And then luckily the next day,
Shit.
our flight was the next day, and I was driving back down the road with Robin Kitchen, and I said, "Robin, I'm dying, dude. I'm 100% dying." So I made the call to my parents saying I was going to die and everything, and then yeah, I got rushed into hospital, and then they had to operate on me instantly. So yeah, I split my pancreas. So your pancreas sits quite near your spine at the back, and it's one of the most delicate organs in your body, and it was broken like that pretty much. And it was basically, it opened up, and all the enzymes which break down all the sugars in your body was moving throughout my whole body and eating me alive. Basically, it was insane. I don't know if you've ever seen the film Three Kings with Ice Cube and George Clooney, and a bullet goes in, and it does like this X-ray shot of the bullet go, and it shows what happens, like going through, and all this bile going everywhere. That was all that was in my head. I was like, I feel like I've been shot. I've never been shot, but yeah, it was gnarly. So, and that was kind of when everything changed. My confidence just plummeted, and yeah, that was the worst part of my career. I think that was the end of my competitive career. That's for sure. On the world.
What, in hindsight?
Looking back.
In hindsight, looking back, that's when it just tailed off.
I didn't realise I was pretty confident then, and even after the contest,
coming back, when you came back,
even when I come back, I was still fairly confident. But I knew at the back of my mind, I was like, that hurt. I don't want to do that again. And that was a definite turning point, like an unspoken of turning point. If you know, like you said, in hindsight, that's probably what sort of kickstarted the downward spiral of my competitive career.
But subconsciously you realize the worst case is not something you're willing to do. Like if you felt physically, emotionally, you almost died, and having to make that call.
That was
to your parents. You're like, wow, this could happen again. Like you don't maybe want to risk as much.
Yeah, I think it was a wake up call for sure. Like what I'm doing is very dangerous. Like there's still so much progression ahead. It's like, how far am I willing to push it? And at that time, it was just when like front flips and things started to get introduced, and it was like, oh God, here we go again. Like, am I ready for that as well? So that was kind of also another reason for me to be like, I don't know if I can continue to do this like as quick as it is. Like the progression, like the rate was just when I went like that. The progression went that, and I'm like, I'm going the opposite direction. Everything was going wrong, and I think that's what played a big part in everything. So then that was when I decided to just focus on media and just doing more photo shoots with MBUK and things. But it still didn't feel right, and my motivation dropped because there was I wasn't competing. I was still competing, but I wasn't making podium, and it was. It killed me, dude. It really killed me. Yeah. Horrible.
Yeah, how hard is it? How hard is it doing something you love for so long as a child? And then I was at the point at some races, like you're just going through the motions. You don't always want to be there.
Yeah.
You know, and it's meant to be this fun, passionate thing, but it becomes a job where you just go, it's the last thing I want to do.
Yeah.
Is ride my bike that used to bring me so much joy.
Yeah, and I felt like I hate to say it because I was riding for Kona at the time, which was regarded as like the coolest team to be a part of, like the clump team. And there was like Bordeaux, Paul Bass, the Lacondigues on there. I was on there. Dave Watson just was the tail end, and then Carlin Dunn. Like I think I've listed them all off, but all those guys. And I saw it as a bit of a chore. And I felt like I was taking it for granted. Like, thankfully, I was still good, don't get me wrong. And I know I was, and I was still performing well, but I wasn't performing how I wanted. So I was kind of just there. I was just tagging along. And it probably did show because I wasn't in the mindset of progressing anymore because I kind of, not gave up, but yeah, I was just in a very weird place. And that's when it just started to get worse, I guess. That's when, and it all sort of spiraled down. And dude, it spiraled for like 10 years, dude, like for a long time.
Well, you kept it going for like 10 years after kind of,
exactly.
What, maybe inside knowing it's not what you need to be doing.
Exactly that, yeah. So for like, I think it would have been for a solid 10 years, I was just this goes back to when I left school. I was now at a point where like, what do I do now? Like, do I continue riding? Do I go back to a normal life, which is, I mean, when I say a normal life, like work, actual work, not getting paid to ride. And that was like the hardest decision for me. And I just thought, thankfully, because I've bottled all of these emotions up and I don't want to tell people to do one, thankfully, I kept a really good support network within the industry. Like the mountain bike industry is a very small industry, and you piss off one person, it has a knock-on effect, because that person could end up going somewhere else, and then that person will be told about you, and that's kind of how it is within our sport. So I was like, thankfully, I was chirpy enough to, and I was still pretty positive that I did keep hold of all of these contacts to continue doing what I loved. So yeah, I do thank every single one of my sponsors, every single one of them, for I suppose believing in me, even though I didn't believe in myself. You know, I was just sort of, I say milking it, I guess. Yeah, but yeah, it worked out. It worked out eventually. Yeah, I don't really know where I'm going with it. I'm spiraling again. But yeah,
No, it is so fascinating. But what like, so we're at the point sort of before social media, and then there were these video parts and traveling around the world and getting paid to do that.
yeah.
Like at the time, were you pinching yourself? Like it was the freeride and slopestyle style of the sport was more rock star than the racing side.
Hell yeah,
right?
yeah, God,
It
yeah,
was a lot of adrenaline
Yeah.
and egos and the crowd pumping you up,
yeah,
and then after parties after after
Yeah.
parties, and then on to the next venue.
yeah. Oh God,
Like
yeah.
it's a pretty surreal way to earn a living.
Yeah, and I think that, I mean, to any normal person, they'd frown upon it. Would be frowned upon. They'd like, how can that be a job? But like, you know, crazy enough, it is, and we're at the forefront of it. And that period was, I suppose, kind of saved me in a way as well from me thinking too many dark thoughts, because there were still some good things being done, right? So there was all these video projects that I was included in. So there was still time for progression, but on different features or something new. So there was still that goal to be good at something, on something, not necessarily winning. Like, yes, I was still competitive, but I still had that, I want to do a world's first or something. So that's when video projects were really big. And so I did have something to look forward to still. But yeah, that I would say was the golden era. You know, like there was events like 26 Tricks where all you boys would be riding the downhill, and then the after party would be, right, let's go watch the slopestyle guys, and let's just go and smash loads of beer glasses everywhere and just smash the place up. It got out of hand at some point, but most of the times it was it was pretty rock and roll, dude. Yeah, there would be a lot of parties, and I think everything that I went through came out at the parties. So I was known as a bit of a party.
Yeah.
I was known as a bit of a party animal. So all my, not aggression, but I'd say I've got a bit of a personality, and when I've had a few drinks, it comes out even more. And now, yeah, some parties were really good. Yeah.
And you think it's literally blowing off steam, right?
Yeah, I
I'm
think
not
so.
condoning
Yeah.
all behavior.
Yeah.
But to me, it's a fascinating, like if you go look at the why,
Yeah.
it's no doubt,
Yeah.
you know, and the race is pent up and
Yeah.
no partying, drinking
Yeah,
and sacrificing, and then it would all come out. And maybe you guys as well, like, yeah, you might have a few beers leading up to calm the nerves,
Yeah.
but you did keep it in a pile, and then you psych yourself up for this 30 to 40 second run, which
Yeah.
could injure you,
Yeah.
or it could change the next 5 years of your career. If you think
Yeah.
about it, like you do well at a slopestyle, at a Crankworks, or these big events,
Yeah.
like your name's in the history book,
Yeah.
and you can kind of ride that wave with sponsors for longer than you probably think.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the way a slopestyle rider back then dealt with it was because I think, like, it's all because I think it's all down to when it was, and it was still young, and no one really understood. No one. We're having fun on our bikes every single day, so that's classed as training, but we don't see it as training. So, but when we know that there's a contest, we're like, okay, so this is when it gets a bit serious, and no one knew how to deal with it. So the only way that I dealt with it would be by getting drunk, and it really would be that the night before. So the funniest time was we're at like the Cash Guys series was a really big series, and they like Nissan pumped in millions, and we all got appearance fees. We all got thousands just to just turn up. So we're like, freaking hell, this is like we've made it. And but we still couldn't. We didn't really know how to manage it. Like each ride, there was a couple of guys that were managed by Tarek and like Martin and a few other of the guys were they all had managers, but even they weren't getting managed properly because everyone was smashed. Like going back to so going a bit off topic there, but when we're at Newcastle,
Please do.
Yeah.
We want the unheard story.
Yeah,
I want them.
so we're at Newcastle, and I think Lance was there, and there's a few of the UK guys. I think Lance probably tried to have a fight with Straight or something. There was always something happening. Lance was a pain, but we were so drunk, and I got in at I think probably like 3 or 4 in the morning, like wasted, absolutely steaming. And bear in mind, like we got a ride the next day, and there's all these big screens. It's all live on. I can't remember what it was, live on Freecast or Eurosport or something. Might have even been Red Bull, I don't know. And I'm at the top of this tower, and they're like, "Okay, UK-based freerider Grant Chopperfield are about to drop in." Then I'll just come up to the edge, and I'm like, "One sec," on the big screen, and there's thousands of people watching. It's all over. It's live on the internet. Everyone's watching from all over the world. And I'm like, "1 second," and I'm underneath the big Red Bull arch, and then I put my bike down, take my helmet off, and I put my head over the edge, and I just throw up. And it was quite windy, and it was like sick rain going everywhere. It was going over quite a few people. And then I'm like, oh
No
my God,
ways.
this is really bad. And then I dropped in and did the first tail whip drop in a contest and landed it clean. And I didn't even ride that day. I just woke up from a party.
After being sick before you run.
Yeah, pretty bad. And then did a tail whip drop off this little skinny about this big, which was pretty scary. And then landed that. That was the first one. Well, on wood anyway. I think Paul Bass done it at Crankworks, but it was so funny. And every single rider there, I remember Cam, Goldman, Watts, everyone was just because it was hilarious. Because that was just how it was. It was just that was how rock and roll
Yeah,
was.
I mean, we're not condoning it, right? It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
like exactly. It happened.
I know, right?
So let's talk about it. Like that's how rough and raw the sport was.
Yes,
you guys, you knew no better.
No.
And it was just like a way to release the tension and the pressure that I guess you weren't used to, like you said. But we were just down the woods having a jam format, right?
Yeah.
Pushing each other, learning new tricks. And then you're like, okay, now let's box these riders into a schedule and live TV and all these things they're not used to, you know, and the appearance fees. Like, how would you not think you're a rock star?
I know.
You're getting treated like one.
Well, that's it.
You don't get told off. You don't get in trouble for anything. Like, it's still like everyone. No wonder you become these sort of selfish, egotistical monsters at times.
And it's funny because there's a guy called Dick Cox who's he was quite high up. He was quite high up in Kona at the time.
Say that. That's annoying. That's not it's his name.
No, that's his actual name.
I mean, no disrespect.
But no,
no disrespect.
Yeah, and he knows.
I was caught off guard
it.
there.
So if Dick Cox, if
my
you're listening,
apologies.
You're the man. So I remember Dick Cox labelled us all in the Kona team as cartoon characters. Like we were all our individual sort of superheroes, and it was so true. But that wasn't just our team. That was the whole of our sport in general. That was all the slopestyle riders. Like you had like Darren Pecoy from Australia, who was this little rock star, like guy with flesh tunnels and riddled with tattoos. And then you had someone like Lance, who was like this supermodel looking, like ego, crazy, like action figure guy. And then you've got the two Laconda. It was like WWF. Everyone had their own personality, and that's why it worked. And that was, and now like everyone's kind of, no disrespect to the guys, but it's all quite similar because there is a lot more structure, and everyone's got to be a bit more cleaner and a bit more careful with things, and that's kind of how I see it now. But back then it was nuts. It really was nuts. Every weekend as well. That like people throwing up at the start tower, probably. It was that bad.
And it
Really
was
bad.
big money. Like, didn't Paul Bass win like 100 grand that season? Or
Yeah.
I mean, there was huge money at that cash guy thing. What
Yeah,
were you
God,
guys
yeah.
raking in there in a good year?
So I remember each rider got to win just one event, one stop. I think it's like 15 grand or something, or maybe 20. It's like fairly reasonable, like if it was every other month, but this was every weekend. So I remember the first year, Darren Bearclough, he won. I can't remember what he won, but he ended up winning the overall as well, and you get an extra bonus on that. And he won like an extra 50k, like euros or something. And it was like that's a lot of money, like extra, like that was pretty nuts. And I remember that year, we're all at Crankworks, and we're all on Bearclaw's boat, and Paul Bass is on the boat as well, and he's like, "This should have been my fucking boat." Which is probably, because Paul rode really well that year, but Darren stole it. But yeah, that was yeah. Hearing that hearing that day made me laugh. That was hilarious. Yeah. But yeah, there was
Should be my boat.
yeah, it was the way you said it. But there was a lot of money at stake back then. But even now as well. But back then it just there's a lot of money. Yeah. Crazy.
What do you make of it now? Like, I guess it's
I think
been cleaned up a little bit more. It's been more professionalized.
To be honest, like
when Semenuk started dominating, and then Reader, it's like, man, you got to be so dedicated and robotic to have a chance.
Yeah, you do.
Sport has moved on a bit.
Yeah, I think something like the Cash Guy series could happen again. It's just a question of getting the right sponsors, and the people behind it is the most important thing. You've got people like Tarek Rasoli, who's been doing it from day one. If it wasn't for that guy, Europe and maybe the world stage wouldn't be nowhere near as good as it is today. And that's with the support of lots of Red Bull events as well. But I think something like that could happen again. But at the same time, that probably gave these like today's current events that platform. So they probably saw that and thought, let's bring that to a more mountain bike ski slope resort rather than the cities. Like, I don't know, I'm not really an event specialist, but it would be good to see something like that again. But then again, you've got Red Bull District Ride as well, so you see, and all the riders come together, and it's just a cool publicity stunt, I suppose, for mountain biking. And I don't really know where I'm going with this, but yeah.
Well, I mean, those like Audi 9s events,
Yes,
like they've kind of taken over these jam format events,
Yeah.
Darkfest. I
think
guess, those sorts of, like,
what I like about
kind of riders built for the riders.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think's important for our sport, because like biking, you got so many different breeds of riders, and not everyone wants to compete. And if you do want to compete, you can't just go and ride the biggest contest. You've got to work your way up. But there's also opportunities, like you say, like Audi 9s and Darkfest and Huckfest or whatever these events are. And it just gives everyone a good platform to train for, because it's very similar to how I was when I was riding for video parts. It still gives that rider, because I think where I'm going with it, Needles, is like, I think every single rider has a goal. I don't care what you say, but everyone has a goal. Everyone wants, I just want to get a bit more sideways. That's a goal. Like, people don't just ride for the sake of it. People want to be able to progress. And that's what I love about these events outside of the FMB and Crankworks events, because of exactly that reason. So yeah, I want to start doing more of that. I did get invited to Huckfest recently, but it was a bit last minute. But I would like to start riding some big stuff. Yeah, just to for a bit of fun.
So you've still got that itch? Because I was
Oh
going to
hell yeah!
say, when did you find yourself and become comfortable in your, say, let's say your own skin,
Yeah,
being yourself and this character in the industry post competitiveness? Because you're judging,
yeah,
you've got brands, you work for brands.
yeah.
Like, when did that? Maybe walk me through that transition, and now like how long it took to be like, okay, this is who I am. I'm comfortable with. This is what I provide. You know?
Yeah, so I think that all started back in 2016. So Sam Pilgrim had his own invitational in Birmingham, which was a drop and a jump and a quarter pipe. And I really wanted to do well there because it's home setting. There wasn't many jumps, so I didn't have to string a whole run together. So I could just focus on just doing a couple of bangers, and it was a jam format, and it was cash for tricks. But there was an overall winner at the end of it, and I don't know why, but I thought I'm going to beat everyone today, and think about that. There was Pilgrim, there was Reynolds, there was Matt McDuff, there was these massive names there, and I just thought I I'm going to win today because my youngest, well, my eldest now, but she was 3 at the time, and she was there, and I was like, right, I'm going to show off in front of my youngest. Yeah, and I won that event, and I was like, right, I'm done. Let's end on a high. So I'm in control of that. Do you know what I mean? So I wanted to win on
Okay.
so I wanted to leave on a high. So I done some gnarly stuff, which like some of my closest mates were like Gilly was there, my hero at the time. It kind of everything fell into place, and he's laughing like, dude, you rode incredible. Like, because I just felt free. I felt like I found myself. And after that, I, I kind of, yeah, because I ended it on a high. I kind of knew what I wanted to do. I was like, right, okay, now I feel like a good. Now I feel like I can. Now I feel like I've figured this out. Now I know what I just want. I just want to ride for fun now, because I didn't crash and get beaten at an event and then just stop. I had to do that, and it was perfect time. And I was and it was 2016, so it wasn't that long ago. Still 7 years ago, but yeah, and then that's when I realised I just wanted to ride for fun and be more of a media hoe. So do lots of photo shoots still, like for magazines, because magazines were still kind of like the pinnacle. Like, in my opinion, still the best thing to be a part of, because it's still quite a niche thing to be a part of. And also little video projects, and just keeping my sponsors sweet quite generally. That was the whole social media thing, like making sure I'm topping up a video a week, that kind of thing. And then it sort of dawned on me, like, I want contests to start being judged properly again. So I started to think about all the times when I was riding back in the day, and I got stitched up so much, and lots of guys got stitched up because the judging was just so. And it wasn't the judge's fault. It was because the sport was still so young. Like, none of these events were being judged correctly, and that sort of made me think, okay, I would like to help this, because I'm one of very few guys that are in it from the start who can still keep up with these guys. I've just won a contest. Maybe I should start thinking about making this judging thing a little bit more better. So that's when I phoned up Paul Rack, who's now one of my best mates. I love the bloke. He's been judging Crankworks events and lots of the F&B events for the past, what feels like 20 years, a long time. And he's got a snowboard background. So there's only so much he knows, but he understands the format, and over time he's understood the physics behind it all. So he understands how tricks work and what's harder and what's not through experience, but he hasn't done it. So the reason why I wanted to be involved with judging was because of that, because I could still ride. I understand, and I'm pretty quick with understanding what tricks are what. And then now the judging is at a point where it can't get any better. I mean, it could, of course, it could always get better, but we are on it. And the judge panel now, up until this year consists of only former riders, which is so important. Yeah, that's where it's at right now. So the transition from
And how did?
the transition.
Sorry,
No,
man.
that's cool. The transition from I needed to end on a high to keep that positive attitude and mentality going into something like judging, which requires a little bit more professionalism. So maybe that's when Grant comes back in, if you know what I mean, rather than this chopper personality. Because the one thing that I was always concerned about was people think, because of my personality, I was a bit of a joker and a bit of a party goer. I wanted people to realize that there is another side to me, and I am very professional. I've run my own business since 2013, going to schools, which I can talk about in a bit. But I wanted people to see that side of things. So I want people to understand that I am a professional guy as well as an idiot called Chopper sometimes, you know. So yeah, it was interesting. It was a good. It was a
And
weird
how does that?
transition, but fun.
Yeah, well, they all are. Like
Yeah.
mine looks decent on paper, but it's been one of the craziest challenging things, and it is still a challenge. Every day is this new challenge. What is the system of the judging now? Like, how many judges do you also score because you now moved into head judge?
Yeah.
Like, maybe break down how, as a run ends, how many judges are looking at it, how you guys sort of judge, and then how do you make sure there's not someone being a little bit too biased towards a rider?
So
Because you still know some of the riders. You
yeah,
might like a
yeah, of
certain
course,
style over
yeah.
another style,
I think
or a trick over another trick.
I think no matter who you are, you will always have some kind of biasy in a way towards some. I have my favourite riders, of course I do, but that all gets put in. That gets locked away the moment the contest happens, because of every single judge. Every judge on our panel has experienced that, so they know that they want every single rider to be judged completely fair. So that's they. So every every year we do a judge clinic where it's almost like what pilots do. You know, like just to make sure, just topping them up with making sure that they know what they're doing, basically. Well, the last thing I want is for a judge to be biased. Otherwise, they won't be on it. I will quite. I'd pull them out. I'd call them out on it and just say, "Look, dude, like you can't be on this panel." Like, there's already been a few judges where I've had to say, "Look, dude, sorry, we can't have you anymore. You're too biased on certain, not just necessarily riders, but for. I'm sorry, dude, but you're focusing way more on style than how difficult that was on that feature, say." So, yeah, each of our judges were former riders who know what they're talking about. Yeah. So the things we look for from start to finish are, the moment a rider drops in, they are a silhouette. We've always seen every single rider as a silhouette. We all have a steno, and we say, if there's, just for example, there's 5 features. So there's a drop, a jump, a wall ride, and then a quarter pipe or something. We would label that, so it'd be a little graph, and there'd be 2 boxes for each one, for run 1 and run 2. And each judge has their own little shortcuts, so the little shorthand. So if you did a flat drop flip straight off the start, I personally would just write F. And if it was a nice poppy one, I'd probably put a little arrow in there just to remind myself. And then the next trick could be a triple truck. I would write TT, and if it was a nice, or it was on a nice angle, I'd adjust it with arrows. Or if they case, I'd put a very small little case mark. So everyone has their own sort of hieroglyphics in a way to write down what, and that's all we do. So during the contest, that's all we do. Boom. And then at the end, we go through the criteria. Okay, so looking at practice runs, guys, what, like, do you think that could win it? And we're like, no, we're sort of thinking around mid pack. So say if a guy's done a mediocre run, so he's started off with a flip, triple truck, fronty, a 3, and then a tail repair or something. For us, that's a pretty average run today's. And because of our experience, we know that that's where that's going to sit, because watching practice is important, so then we know what's going to happen. So we would think to ourselves, okay, so difficulty, that was, yeah, pretty good. On that feature, okay, what about that? What about that? Okay, right. How technical was it? Was it smooth? Like, was there any cases in there? How high did the guy go? And was it stylish? Like, how effortless did this guy make it look? And we get all these criteria goes through each of our riders, each of our judges' head, and then we come up with a score. And the one thing that I want people to recognize is the first score, no matter who it is, always has to be pretty low. You imagine if we go in with 99.
Yeah. It's just a ranking system. It's almost irrelevant. Yeah.
So when a score comes in, we have to, it always has to be like not that high, simply because we've got another 13 riders to come, plus that guy's second run. That's another 27 runs we have to fill. And then that's when people are like, okay, I get it. So the very first score is always the hardest score. We call that the anchor score, because that's what's going to set the bar for everyone. So it might be a mediocre run. Boom. Okay, we'll put that around 66 or something. But then the next rider could absolutely destroy it. So we need to make sure that there is a big enough gap from that 66. So we can't go too high because there's still space there for another 25 more runs. So we might have to just come down to about there. Do you know what I mean? So when we are writing these scores, it's nothing to do. It's nothing to do with the number. It's to do with this scale.
The ranking, right?
Yeah, just all ranking.
Scale and ranking.
It's all ranking. So
I spoke to Bear Claw about that.
That's all it is. So when you see a score of 66.66, they'd be like, how the hell did you come up with that number? It's just where the bar is. It's just the data capture. It's just, that's the number. Okay, that's cool.
Okay, so it's not because judges like one gave them this number and two and three, and you add it up and it gets to that.
So sometimes you will see a contest where it's really tight between the riders, and then you'll see a number there of 92 and then a number there of 89, and you'll be like, whoa, that's like 3 points. All that guy needs to do is a bar spin. Like, no. That guy would have to do an extra bar spin on every feature as well as a front flip or something. But that means nothing.
Fair enough.
So we need to. So what we tend to do is we try to get all the guys to slot him in perfectly in the middle. So then there's still space there and still space there. It's as weird as it sounds, but it's all about it. It is purely ranking. However.
Yeah, that's what I said to Bear Claw. Yeah, it could just be a ranking system.
Yeah, it totally could. But I feel, but the numbers
never been like that. It is a ranking system.
I mean, you're not going to say, "Oh, that guy's got a higher line," you know. So you have to add numbers, and it looks good. And it's. I think it's all down to. It's very. What's the word? It's historic, isn't it? It's numbers. You can't really change that. So yeah, that's how we judge. Some guys might prefer only a fraction. They might prefer style over difficulty, but that's why we have 5 guys on the panel at these gold and diamond events. So we'd have like Anton Thielander, who would be able to list off every single one of Emil's run. Like he'd know all the tricks. Boom. Sometimes, as probably the entire world, everybody's like, what the hell did he just do then? And even sometimes on the judge panel, we have to come back to that trick through the highlight reel because Emil is so technically ahead. So we have to make sure, hang on a minute, that was an oppo tail whip. Okay, and no, he done it that way. It's all like that. Even as small as like bar spin in the opposite way, like just noticing things like that. We take into account everything, and having Anton there is very helpful in that sense because he really understands Emil because he rides with him a lot. But there's no bias there whatsoever. And then you've got a rider like Fedko, as we all know, he rides incredibly smooth and goes so high, and all of his tricks are extended, and he's got a great variety. But he probably spins to the left too much. Do you know what I mean? So we all we all have these different views on each rider, and like Simon Gudjek, for example, I think that's everyone's favourite because he brings motocross elements to it. So he does massive cliffhanger flips, and then it goes straight into it like a BMX cork 7, like perfect, and then double flip. He mixes it up so well. So that kind of rider, for an overall impression, ticks a lot of the boxes there as well. So yeah, it's we all have our own sort of views on each rider, which is like what I said. We that's why we have a lot of guys on the panel at these big events, because it's career changing. Yeah, that's
Yeah. So I get it from commentary quite a lot. Like I feel like I'm super in the sport. The nerves start setting in before we go live.
yeah.
Do you think it kind of scratches that itch that after giving up competitiveness and now you in this competitive nature with these people in a sport you're passionate about, but then you've got to perform.
Yeah, I
You've got
think
to be on it for that
yeah,
judging.
I think that's when passion comes into it, right? And passion pays no matter what job you do. So the moment the moment we're about to judge, my heart rate is just normal. It's so relaxed because I'm passionate about it. I'm in control. Like if I'm shaking like this about to judge, you shouldn't be judging. Like the main thing for me when I judge these events is to make sure that every single rider comes away from it feeling that was fair, because that's what a lot of the guys on the panel have experienced. Like they've been stitched up. There might still be the occasional dispute on who should have come where, here, there, and everywhere, but we are learning. We're learning every single time, and it's getting better and better. For example, you've got Emil winning everything at the moment, and you can hear, not hear, but well, you can actually at some of the events. But then you see online, everyone's sick of it. Imagine being Emil, being that good that everyone's bored of
Yeah.
you now. Like it's so unfair. And what's funny is I will give you like some good inside information here. Emil done a run the other. I think it was in Innsbruck, and his first run, Brett Reeder was behind us all in the tower, watching us judge because he was interested, and he came, and it was when David beat Emil on his second run. Oh, yeah, so David did his second run, and then David beat Emil's first run, and then Emil went and done his second run and then beat David. If I'm right, if I remember.
I think so. Yeah, that's
so
how
yeah,
I
that sounds about
remember
right, doesn't it? But what's funny is that there was a big dispute, like David should have won that, David should have won that, but yet you've got Brett Reeder stood right behind us, who's won Rampage, who's won countless amounts of gold and diamond events, saying, I think Emil's first run would have beaten David's anyway. So this is why it's so interesting, because you've got someone like the world's best biker to have ever ridden like Rampage or whatever. Brett Reeder stood behind it saying that. So it's like, okay, Brett, do you want to come and judge? Like we're always looking for that extra person, and the only people that can judge are the people that have done it. So I would rather have Brett say, yeah, you were right, over 1,000 people saying you were wrong, because for me that's the only person who knows. So that's my point. That's the message I just want to send out to a lot of people, which people don't hear.
Yeah, I mean,
people don't hear that.
He's as no, and he's as credible could be. And I think you said a few interesting things there. Like you're calm, your heart rate's low.
Yeah,
that's because you're experienced and you're prepared.
yeah, exactly.
So you've done all the work,
Yeah.
and then you're going into this high stress environment.
Yeah.
That's kind of like an athlete.
Yeah.
If you can get yourself, I've done the training, I've done everything. It's stressful, but I just calm myself because I've done everything I can.
Yeah,
exactly. And
that.
but it really is. It's such a tough job. I said it to Bearclaw. I've said it to you in person.
Yeah,
I don't want the judging job. Like even me, commentary, and then you've got the speed and style. And I'm like, I don't know about that.
Yeah.
Did they get that right? We've all got an opinion.
Yeah.
But you guys are the one in the trenches doing the best you can, and you might make some mistakes. Yeah. That's human nature.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, I am going to blow our own trumpets right now, but we very rarely make mistakes, because for us, that's when the passion, that's where, like, sometimes we get, you see one of us like this, hey Chopper, we need the scores now, like, fucking hurry up. We're like, dude, like, I don't care how much this is
Not
costing.
happening.
I don't care. Yeah, so
yeah.
but
How much it is to have your satellite in the air?
So,
like, we're going to do the right job here.
yeah, but I do respect it. Obviously, if it's broadcasted, but and I understand it costs money if we're taking too long and it's eating away at EastEnders at 6:00 or whatever. It's that kind of thing. But I get it. But at the same time, that's why we have the guys who we have on the panels, because we've been there. We're quick, we're decisive, and we're calm, and that's why we are as good as we are. Like you said, we are human. We will make the odd. There might be the odd slip up, but we're trying. We are trying, and if we.
But I think there's 5. Yeah, I mean 5 judges, and you've just said something I kind of knew along. It's a ranking system.
Yeah.
Like if 5 guys can just go, okay, replay the run.
Yeah.
Out of the 5 people, is Emil better than him? Like, we're not going off score. It's like, where's the ranking system?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Can we slot him there? Like, if we slot him there,
yeah.
are we comfortable? So you've
I'll
got to a point.
I will give you another.
Get the ranking right.
Yeah, so I'll give you another breakdown there as well. So when it does become very tight, say for example, you've got David Gudziak and Emil who are at the top. It seems to be first and second right now at these events. And what we always do is we always have a separate piece of paper for when it does become tight, because it gets really packed, like mid-table as well. So it could be 7th and 8th. That's where it always gets really tight. It gets really bunched up, which we try to avoid, but it's always difficult. But we always have the separate sheet where we would write down, okay, let's take you and me, for example. Right, let's put Chopper there and Needles. Right, let's put their runs down, and we're going to compare each one. Right? So we compare, okay, Chopper's one was better. Yep. Okay, Needles was better there.
Well, like each feature.
So each feature.
Like feature by feature.
Exactly
yeah.
that. So it'd be like, okay, so Chopper comes out on top. Okay, so each feature, Chopper's won that. Okay, that feature that Needles won on there, that was so heavy, that outweighs that first feature that Chopper done. So we don't judge feature for feature. We're like, okay, so he done a flip whip off that flat drop near the end. That was pretty ballsy because he's
who Needles did.
Wow. You just did.
Wicked.
Which is on your downhill bike.
First
somehow.
one ever.
Yeah.
Oh.
So
wow.
So we have to take the weight from that and think that was better than Chopper's first 2 runs. Okay, so now we're kind of level now. Okay. Needle's style was pretty sick though. Okay, so you've just topped it there. And then the different.
You think so?
Yeah, it was.
Are you
style,
just joking again, like my flip whip?
Yeah, so your flip whip with triple claps on, and then so the difficulty outweighs that. Okay, right. Okay, Needles has got this. Okay, and then we go back to the scoreboard. This is what takes so long. Okay, we're going to slot him in there now. Okay, so you're just going to take I'm not going to give you too many points above, but I'm going to give you just enough in case Chopper doesn't beat that second one you've done. So Chopper can still like improve, but won't beat you still. So even if I added an extra 3 tail whips, it still hasn't beaten you. It could be like you could be on 93 and I could be on 91, and I'll end up going in 92, even though I've just smashed my previous run that still didn't beat yours. So score is irrelevant. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, so that's wicked.
So when there is,
it's come a long way. Eh?
Oh God, it's crazy. Like, and Raw Motion, the guys.
Could you imagine
behind all the?
I remember my first few crankworks is so much bitching about the judging.
Oh God,
right?
yeah.
And I'm not taking it out on the judges. New sport, tough people learning new tricks. And now, like, you hear so much less of that. And I'm ignoring the keyboard warriors. I'm saying at the event with people in the know.
Yeah.
You speak to the rider, say, what do you think? And they'll be like, no, 100% that person should have been ahead. Yeah. I was like, okay, cool. I don't know the sport at your level. That's what I'm asking.
It's probably
good.
It hasn't created enough controversy anymore, like, because it's so good. It it probably doesn't make
Yeah, because controversy is fun, isn't it?
probably
Yeah, it like
doesn't
gets people
make
talking and rewatching the highlights.
yeah, exactly. It probably doesn't make your job as fun as entertaining to watch because there's no dispute because they're like, yeah. So and soon as they find out that the rest of the field are like, yeah, I think the results were good, everyone's just silent. It's like, okay, see you next year. It's, do you know what I mean? It's like
Yeah,
you,
it's almost like a meal winning too much.
yeah. So
like you guys are.
you can't win. But it is, yeah. So it's quite funny on that sense. But yeah, I'm really proud of all the judges because it's going back to going back to when I first got into it. It was pretty scary. I went straight into the deep end at a gold event. So my very first event judging, I judged 26 tricks, and I was alongside a few other guys that were judging there. And no offense to the guys, but they were dreadful. And Hank, who's the BMX Olympic head judge of the Olympics, he was there, and he was the head judge of 26 tricks at the time. And he saw me. He was like, "Chop, I've never met you before, but you have absolutely smashed this." And that was what gave me the motivation to be like, "I'm stoked with this. Yeah, let's go. Let's keep going."
Awesome. So you had someone that like believed in you in that next path of your career.
I kind of So I'm grateful to Tarek for inviting me to that event, but mostly down to Hank for saying how good I was. And I needed that little boost outside of biking or outside of competing to say you can do other things outside of this, you know. So yeah, that was really helpful.
It's interesting how much that validation helps.
God, yeah, it does. And I feel
like having a mentor or someone ahead of you saying you've got this, because we're all doubting it. I doubt myself on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And we all do.
Yeah.
It's nice to have that validation. People don't realize how important it is, or giving that to someone if it's a true feeling you have of someone. You say, hey, keep it up. You have something here.
And I think that's important for a lot of riders, because yes, you might be a part of a team, but at the end of the day, it's still down to your individual performance, right? So you need a pat on the back. And if you're not getting, like slopestyle riders, for example, you just get your mates like, yeah, man, that was sick. And everyone just goes to sleep. That was it. Like, or, I mean, if you've got a manager, it's great. But I feel like with slopestyle riders, you never really, you've always been on your own the whole time. Like everyone's against each other. Like if I'm competing against you, dude, I don't want you to win. I want to win. You know, and then the moment all that's taken away from you, it's tough. And like you said, yeah, this whole judging thing is, and being told that I'm good outside of that is just what you need. Like, do you know where I'm going with it? Like, yeah, I don't know, kind of going off on one again.
That's the whole point.
Yes, yeah.
That's to figure out how to articulate our inner feelings as males.
There we go. Like, I still can't figure it all out. But the one,
hey, this is free, eh?
I know, right?
This is free therapy, dude. You don't even have to pay me.
It's crazy. I think it's. I love talking to people like yourself, because you're the only person who can relate to it. Like, you're the only person that can relate to getting a proposal together every single year and saying, please sponsor me or whatever, you know, like that. I was only chatting the other day to another rider about it, and I don't miss doing that. I mean, I still do it, but I'm full. I work full time for Muck-Off now, and I'm their presenter as well as their content
so you've
creator.
got that as well.
Yeah. So I kind of have that security now, and if I can ride and get sponsors, it's a bonus, which is what I'm still doing. So I'm still riding. I'm still getting paid to ride as well, which is cool. So I've got some good partners there.
But it's a total bonus, right? So you've got some security.
It is, yeah. So, but looking back at when I think that was the most stressful part as well, was always having to sit down around about August, knowing that all these brands are getting their budgets sort of tightened up for the following year, and you need to get on it, and you need to, you know, you got to look like a peacock, right? You got to stand out from the rest. You want to be slapped on in front of the director, like, sponsor this guy. And I think that's one thing that I was always good at. Like, I knew my value, and I knew what I could bring to the table. And this goes back to what I said originally: is like having a real close and tight network is really attractive to every sponsor, because you can get stuff done quicker and you can get more of it, and ultimately get as much exposure for that brand as possible as well. So, but it was still a pain in the ass getting these proposals together every single year, August, September, and you'd be like, if they don't sign me, I'm not going to get paid, and I'm going to be in trouble.
Yeah, but don't you? It's less the pain in the ass of the proposal. It's like the unknown if you're going to get renewed. Like
Exactly.
what other look? No job's perfectly secure,
Yeah.
but these days with HR and stuff, like it's quite hard to fire certain people if you've been performing okay.
Yeah.
On a corporate level, and it comes up quite a lot. And it's just like, but imagine reapplying for your same job
I know.
every 2 years,
And that's what happens, right?
even after performing well. Like you never quite know. And I work in cycles, and still to this day, even the wife now will say, can we not plan a little bit further ahead?
Yeah, I know.
I said, well, we can, but I've got the 2-3 years currently where that's stable.
Yeah.
It will work out in the long run. I know it will. I know I can work hard enough, invent myself, and add some value somewhere.
Yeah.
But I also, the security is technically only for 2 years at this budget level.
I know, right?
If you know what I mean.
Yeah, God, yeah.
But now you've got that muck-off thing. That's pretty cool.
I'm stoked with it. It come at a very good time. So going back to what I was about to go off on one about, I used to have my own business, and it was called Super Schools. So I'd go into school and talk to kids about living a healthier and more active lifestyle, and we would take athletes in, so Olympic athletes as well as action sport athletes. Matt Jones done a couple as well. So we would rock up to this school, or any school, not just randomly. Obviously, it would be booked. We'd rock up to a school and we'd have a demonstrate. I'd have a full jump box set up, and all the kids would come in. They'd have a picture with you, and then they'd go and do a series of exercises, so press ups, sit ups, all those kind of things, just to encourage the kids to get out and live a healthier, active lifestyle, and they'd be inspired by athletes. So I did that for so many years, all the way up until COVID. So I was just about to sign on the dotted line. So just as it was just about to go boom, it went because of COVID. So, and obviously schools were hit hard. So all the schools were closed. You weren't allowed to mix with anyone. And I provided a service which included meeting people, which was just not existent then. So my company just flopped. So I pumped all this money into it. And then I thought, I'm screwed. What am I going to do now? Thankfully, I had a couple of extra lives, which was some sponsors. So I was still riding for Lapierre at the time, and they were paying me, but it wasn't enough. And it was at a point where I could have lost the house. So I noticed that Muck-Off they posted up a position to be a presenter, and I was like, this sounds incredible. Let's do that.
I was going to say, it was to the T for you.
Yeah, it was. I was like, right, I love being in front of camera. Muck-Off's just down the road. I know Alex, the owner. It has to work. And then I went there, and then a month later, I'm working for them. So I did an audition. It went really well. I mean, looking back at the audition was awful. So yeah, I've been working with at Muck-Off for 2.5 years now, and it's been really good. It's been really good. It's a great brand. And it's been a good transition. And
yeah, they're a fun brand, man.
Yeah,
it makes sense for you.
Yeah, so
they're fun.
So they let me use. They've got me on board to be creative, I guess. So I'm doing a lot of their social posts, coming up with lots of concepts and helping with editing and producing stuff. And yeah, I'm a bit of a face for Muck-Off as well. I do a lot of their how-to videos, how to use lubes and clean your bike, that kind of thing. And it's all over YouTube and all over other social platforms. And yeah, it's really fun. It's very entertaining. Every week, every day is always fun. And the best part about it is that it's in the industry, and I'm working full time. It really is a really good job. And they also they let me go out to all these events to judge still, because they know how important it is for me as well as the sport. So they're very supportive, and yeah, it's a good brand to be a part of. So so what started out as a pretty morbid conversation about me wanting to end it all, 15 years on, 10 years on, whatever it was, it's everything's worked out really well. So yeah, there is light at the end of the tunnel for most riders, so long as you kind of have a bit of an idea where you were going to go, because you will get there. You know, I did.
But it's tough. It's tough at the time though, because to do a sport very well, it's probably not recommended to think about the next stage,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Even though having a plan B or thinking about the next stage or planning 5, 10 years,
yeah,
how do you plan 5, 10 years when you're like, but my career and my skill set is not going to be usable? But
yeah,
it can be usable. Like if you zoom out and you say,
yeah,
okay, but in 20 years' time, I might have a family and a house
yeah,
or another job.
yeah,
Oh, so my life is okay. But when you're in the middle of it and just going, how am I going to earn an income?
yeah,
What am I going to focus on? You lose your identity. So it's
yeah,
like no wonder it's such a big challenge.
yeah.
So what brought you out of the funk? What brought you out of it? You said your daughter. Is there a point where you got back on the bike and you go, okay, cool, the bike is a healthy thing for me to do even when I'm not competing? Like, what else brought you out of that funk?
I tell you that, like, let's rewind quite a while back, and I was going when I wasn't competing as good as I as good as I was competing at. I, I was in a really weird place, and I was in a weird place for a long time because I had zero direction still. I didn't want to just keep riding. This was during the time of when I was filming. So although that was good, there was still this is. Let me separate Chopper from. I'm talking about Grant now at home, right? So
Yeah,
Chopper's on
yeah.
the jet setting, riding all these competitions, like clinging on out or filming.
And you park him in the garage and you
Yeah,
walk through the door.
exactly. So I've just parked that. I've just come in, and then I don't know what I'm doing. I'm at home sometimes just thinking, what am I doing? Like, am I being selfish? Um, that was all that was going through my mind. Am I just thinking just about me? But and then sometimes I play mind games with myself, like, no, I'm not. This is the only thing I do. You can make a. It was like the devil on my shoulder, just yeah, you're like you need to do this. You need to spend more time with your family. You need to get a proper job. You need to live like a real man. You need to go and do some labouring or whatever. And that's all I heard in my head. And I'm like, no, 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 I can't. I don't want to do that. I just want to ride. I can do it. I can make something of it. And then it got to a point where my relationship became so rocky that eventually we got divorced. And I felt, I won't go into too much detail about it, but it just got really messy, and I didn't get the support I needed, like, because no one understood. And when I say no one, her at the time, she didn't understand. And I kind of I didn't really see so many of my friends at that point because I was going away so much. I was alone. So Chopper was enjoying the life of O'Reilly, traveling the world, riding jumps, getting drunk, partying, having the time of his life. But Grant is at home. He's got no friends because they're all over the world and they're all riding bikes. And Grant is being told to get back to a normal life. You can't do this anymore. And then, yeah, like I said, we got divorced, and I lost the house, and then I hit rock bottom, and that was when I went to my dad's house, and I was like, shit, I can't remember how old I was. It's like early 30s, and I'm back at my dad's house. I've got a daughter. Like, I'm a mess. Like, I'm just like that stereotypical a mess of a bloke. Do you know what I mean? And I felt so worthless, and it's such a crap place to be in, dude. Like, you've been this superstar to now you're back at your dad's house. You've got like your daughter lying on the little blow up bed next to you because it makes me upset now, and it's like wow. And that gave me the motivation to just think, I don't know where it came from, but I just needed to just sort myself out, and So yeah, and that it got to a really real dark place. It was horrible. Just thinking about it now, it's pretty upsetting actually. But yeah,
Yeah, but it's so raw, man.
yeah,
Like I
it
think it
was.
takes courage to talk about it
Yeah,
because
gotcha.
everyone sees where you are on social media and your position,
Yeah,
and then they can be like, "Fuck!" So he pulled himself away from that position
yeah,
to where he is
yeah.
now. Like I can do it.
And I
Like I only get inspired by hearing these stories, like the rags to riches, or
yeah,
I went through so much shit. I
yeah,
didn't know how to get out of it.
yeah,
I just decided to take action. Like there's always this point where you need to take action
yeah,
as hard as it is. It's like a choice.
yeah,
And I'm not saying it's easy for everyone. I'm not here preaching.
yeah,
I'm just saying eventually there's a choice.
yeah,
And the people that get out of the funk is like they just make a choice, even though it's just as hard the day after making the choice
yeah,
of like I'm gonna take some sort of action, and
yeah,
maybe having a career where you dedicated yourself to one thing, you can say, okay, well, if I dedicate myself to a new thing, I can get up to a level of success.
yeah. And I think having a support network is important. Like, don't do what I done and just disappear. Make sure if you've got school friends, make sure they're around. And reach out to friends a lot. And this all stems back to those
Yeah.
days. And like I don't know like I said, like my daughter at the time was the only thing that kept me going because I was in a horrible place because I felt alone. But the one advice that I would give to people is reach out to your friends more, and obviously family comes first, without a doubt, without a shadow of a doubt. I went back to my dad's house. He accepted me. He welcomed me with open arms as a parent would. But there's only so much you can talk to them about. So make sure that you've got a good, solid, tight friendship network close to you, and that's the one thing I didn't have. So yeah, that's the one thing that I wish I kind of reach out to a little bit more to make things a lot easier. But I went through a real rocky patch, but then I eventually got out of it once I met my new girlfriend actually. So yeah, that was the turning point for me, and that's when everything fell into place because she was a lot more structured, but she was also very empathetic. So she understood. If she's never, she doesn't ride bikes, she hasn't got a clue about it, but she understands the impact it's had on me, and she taught me how to how to manage it. And yeah, she's just been my rock. Yeah, so everything's got better now since I met her. So make sure you keep
So
keep keep your mates.
yeah.
Yeah, don't sever any bridges there, and find a good partner. Yeah, and then
Yeah, I
everything
mean
will be good.
the balance is, yeah, relationships, like the longer you live in life, I think you realize how important they are
Oh
to
hell
keep
yeah,
fostering. But it's quite understanding that you would lose them, right? Because you're like jet setting, then you're
yeah,
back for 5 days,
yeah,
you go to the local jumps, you maybe see those guys, then you're
yeah,
off, and you're like, you
yeah,
don't need it
yeah,
technically. You
yeah,
don't actually need it, even though it's ironically something you will need
yeah. I think
because you're just having so much fun, you're around the world.
yeah,
And then that was one tough thing for me. Like I spent 6 months with these friends of mine. Take Brendan, like we're in the trenches together.
yeah,
And you've met Matty. I don't know if you met Matty from Finland.
yeah. I know Matty Luckinen, yeah,
And
really well.
yeah, and like when you stop racing or you stop competing, you don't go to the events. It's like you get cut off cold turkey. And
Yeah,
I joke and I say, but I'm almost weaning myself off it
yeah, yeah, yeah,
because I'm still going to some events and
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
commentating and well, now the podcast, right? So we
yeah,
get to connect, we
yeah,
chat now.
yeah. Of course.
Next time we see each other, there's maybe a deeper level.
Yeah,
But when you don't see those people and you haven't fostered your home network, like you said,
yeah.
that's like, then who do you
I
have?
know, right? Yeah, and like I think that's just it. It's people forget. When I say people like us, we probably forgot who we were at some point. Well, I definitely did. And I've got friends who I speak to now. They're like, "You still biking? You still traveling the world?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What? Like you're still doing that?" I'm like, "Yeah, yeah, yeah." Like they, and bear in mind, I've known them my whole life, and they don't even know what I'm doing. Like I feel so disconnected from my friends, if you know what I mean, in that way. And when I go out with them, I don't even talk to them about biking. we talk about bikes and we talk about like the old BMX videos we used to watch, but I never talk about me ever. I'd say I'm very what's the word, humble about it all. I hate talking about what I do because I know that they haven't been able to do that. So that's another barrier as well, which is tough. So I don't like talking about all these cool things I've done, But at the same time,
Well, with your mates at home.
Yeah.
Well, I don't like doing it either because it's like kind of boring. I talk about it all the time. So
yeah.
I don't like talking bikes when I'm at the pub.
Yeah, and I think this is another
So
thing.
it's a catch 22 though.
Yeah, I think that's probably why you and me get on as well, because we love golf, right? Like, it's like because like the moment you start talking about
we can
golf,
talk about something else.
Yeah, we start talking about just golf, and there's so much to talk about. Like this, it's just a golf club and a ball and a field, but there is so much to talk about, like, and it's yeah, you just need to separate yourself sometimes. And yeah, I do play golf with some friends now at home, so that's my go-to, because bikes can get a bit boring if you're in it every day. Not boring, but you need time out.
Well, but it is work.
Yeah, of course.
I think that's why a lot of people turn to other hobbies and other things.
Yeah.
It's quite a big distraction. Do you think the golf is quite a big distraction to?
Yeah, I love it, because
dealing with normal life and stuff.
I think it's sometimes I just go and do a whole round on my own. So 18 holes, it's like, just under 4 hours, depending on how good I'm playing at the time. But I love it because it's still you on your own, and it's only up to you. But the weather's changing, the wind's changing, like the ground conditions are changing. So like the speed of the ball will change everything. There's so much like technical things with golf, which I love. And that's why I get so frustrated with it. But that's how I feel about bikes. Some days it just clicks. And then the next day it's awful. You want to just throw your clubs into the lake. And it's the same with your bike. But when it,
but I don't think.
But when it
gets
works,
that bad with bikes.
But do you know? I reckon I sometimes get like that.
Mate,
sometimes with bikes.
when do you? Okay. So when do you get on a bike?
Yeah.
One day you rode the trail just fine.
Yeah.
Or do a tail whip at your level.
Yeah.
And then the next day you physically and mentally cannot ride down the trail.
Yeah.
And you're just crashing.
Yeah.
Or you physically cannot land a trick you've landed for quite a long time. Golf, you literally go one day, and the next day sometimes it feels like you've never hit a ball before. Like, to me, most sports, if you put effort in and you can maintain a level, I think that's why maybe for you and I've reflected. I can only push myself so much on a bicycle at this level because I was chasing the clock. I don't do that anymore. So now do I chase Darkfest? Well, I don't really want to land on my head too many times. I don't want to hit the ground too often. It comes as a risk of the sport. So what do I put my attention of improving to?
Yeah, I hear you.
There's work, there's podcasting, and then there's this little addiction of this thing that you can never tame. I think it's because it's always kind of our personalities. I think.
Yeah, everything but
I think it's a sportsman personality.
Yeah, I get you. No, I do get you. Like, you always, if you're gonna,
after chasing something and improving your riding, and now you're like, well, I don't want to improve it too much.
Yeah.
So what am I gonna chase?
Yeah, I know. Yeah, I'm the same. Like, if I think if you're a competitive person and you're competitive on one thing, and you've made a career out of it, you're gonna take that into something else, and you will. And it's funny. I was talking to one of my friends the other day, and his girlfriend works at JP Morgan, which is the bank, right? And they are hiring former athletes for their mentality, which I think is incredible. It's nice that something so corporate like that would want to feature an athlete, but they're buying into their mindset, because that's probably making them money, right? Like, it's funny how I just like that concept. It's like the athlete mind. You'll never change it so long as that athlete is interested.
What do you think they want out of it?
I don't
What do
know.
you think JP Morgan
Well,
wants?
they probably
What do
just
they see?
they probably want someone to hit their targets and goals, because that's I don't know, maybe that's their model. I don't know, but I find things like that interesting, that business are interested in an athlete's mindset. So yeah, like I said, I think if you're going to try
I
something,
think
you'll
it's
be good at it.
powerful if you can channel it.
Yeah, absolutely. So
Yeah, well, I think if you want to do it, you have a level of resiliency,
yeah,
kind of a fuck you attitude of never giving
yeah,
up.
for sure.
Because being a sportsman, the guys that get to the top are the guys that never gave up along the way.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes, you can talk genetics, you can talk surroundings, and
yeah,
there's books written on the topic,
yeah,
right? But at a base level, like, you only get better by failing.
yeah, yeah,
And again, you fail, and then you get up and you get up
yeah,
and you get, and that's any walk of life. But a sportsman has proven that,
yeah,
because they've got to a high level by
yeah,
not giving up. So they're hoping to probably tap into that.
yeah,
There's hard work, there's dedication, and you can be single-minded focus.
yeah.
So they're hoping that they put them in this job, and that's all they focus
Well,
on, I
exactly
would
right,
think.
exactly that. And
Just spitballing.
I think I'm going back to when I first started. Going back to when I just left school and all my friends are going to college and getting jobs around me. I think in that sense, I was probably in a position where I was quite lucky. It was perfect timing. So I would be riding every day, like, because I could, because thankfully my dad would put dinner on the table, But at the time, I didn't really see it as that. I just saw myself as, right, I'm going to ride. I'm just going to ride every day until I get paid to do it. So I was lucky in that sense. So that was the only element of luck in my life, was that I had a roof that was paid for, But everything else was very, like you said, was very like athlete, sportsman, like driven, because I had that opportunity to do it, and I took it, and that's why I did end up becoming the Godfather, say, because I did spend so much time just focusing on that one thing, and that was to be the best, which I did accomplish. So yeah, interesting, cool.
That's been a big challenge of mine, is what to focus on,
Yeah,
like in sport. And I had this one thing. Now it's like commentary, open a business at home,
yeah,
help with some trails.
yeah,
I've got my brands, and then because as I retired, I was like, what the hell am I going to do? And there's a few opportunities that came to me, sort of the universe. I don't know if you believe in that. I think you would, like serendipitous. There's a muck-off position opening, and it's probably something I'd be good at.
yeah, yeah,
So I did all these things, and I failed at some, and I'm still failing at others, and
yeah,
trying to get better. But it's so tough, because what do I focus on in the morning?
yeah,
Even if it's content creation,
yeah,
there's such a clear roadmap when you're in sport. Go ride your bike, learn new tricks,
yeah, yeah,
go to the comp,
yeah,
perform new tricks,
yeah,
get some feedback,
yeah.
go learn new tricks.
It's true. Yeah,
For me, go to the gym, get faster, go to the
yeah,
race.
yeah,
I either sucked or I won,
yeah,
get better.
yeah.
It's like, it's quite simple.
It
I
is.
miss that. I
It is.
miss that, like, single minded,
Yeah.
it's like blinkers on.
Yeah, mate.
Obviously, that's tough, because you lose friends along the way and relationships and stuff, if you want to do it
God,
well.
Yeah, it's like I said, it can be seen as a very selfish thing. So you just need to remain humble. Like there's lots of riders that I've seen that they've had girlfriends. They used to bring them to the events, and they were so kind and lovely. But I know full well they won't last that long, just because they're how I was. They were like, no, I'm just doing my thing. Just go. I'm just riding. And that's just that's the mindset you have to have if you want to be good. Like my brother, for example, he could have been incredible, but he fell in love. And it's so sad to say that, because obviously that's a good thing. But he could have had a very good career in biking, but he chose to just hang out with his girlfriend more than biking. It's like, dude, but that's his life.
Yeah, but does he regret any of that?
Yeah.
Does he ever? Oh, does he say to you, "Shucks, maybe I could have done this
no,
for
100%.
10 years"?
Yeah, God,
I don't know.
Yeah, so me and
Okay.
my brother used to ride all the time together, and we used to come as a package. So if you're going to sponsor him, you're sponsoring me too, or if you're sponsoring me, you're sponsoring my brother as well. But then there came a point where I was like, Ollie, I'm being offered this, like, let me do it, because they're only after one rider. It was the Animal Bike Tour at the time when I was riding alongside Martin Ashton, and they just needed one rider. And I was like, Ollie, I've got to do it. And he's like, no, do it. That'd be wicked. And then that was when we sort of parted. And I think that kind of made him think, yeah, I'm just going to hang out with my girlfriend more. And it sucked because, like, my brother was insane. He was better than me and everything, you know. But never mind. But he's all good.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, it's those choices. It's interesting where they lead. But yeah, alcohol and certain things have certainly derailed many an athlete's career, even once they make it.
Exactly.
But yeah, I've seen that. Like, it takes a really special kind of partner to accept a professional sportsman's lifestyle.
I agree.
And what they need to focus on.
Yeah. Yeah,
it takes and they do exist, but it's not for every person. No. It's not a wrong or a right if a girlfriend breaks up with an athlete. You know, man, it's so difficult. I mean, I made a conscious decision not to get involved at certain times of the year or from people with certain countries, because I knew I was going home for 6 months to ride and train, and then I knew I was leaving for 6 months. So if I didn't meet someone early in my off season, I kind of just knew that I wasn't going to have enough time to form a bond to then deal with long distance. So I just sacrificed. So I was useless at being in a relationship, and I'm the first to say it. I had selfish tendencies, and they're like sort of forced upon you with your career choice. So it's interesting. And later in my career, I read a book, The Ego is the Enemy, by Ryan Holiday. Fascinating book, and I think it's a great book to read.
Interesting.
And the basic pretense is like the ego is there, that self-ego, and it helps you climb the mountain. It's almost needed to climb to the top of the mountain. But it's the very thing that's going to bring you down the mountain. Yeah. So that would be someone that's egotistical about competing against someone else when maybe the shelf life has come and gone, and he shouldn't be trying to compete, and he might get injured, or he's in it for the wrong reasons, the bonus checks, the accolades instead of the passion, or the Lance Armstrong that goes back to the Tour de France and gets hit for doping. Why? Dude, his legacy, quote unquote, was there, and he doped to stay third in the Tour or whatever it was. That's an ego. Yeah. Why couldn't he have got fourth or fifth?
Yeah, I know, right? It's bad.
And that's when they started popping. Think about that. Yeah, and presidents. Yeah. You got this competitive drive and this ego to beat everyone, get to the top. Yeah. And then the ego turns to greed, and you just want to stay there, and you'll take money from any which source.
Absolutely.
You know?
Yeah, it's mad. It is mad. Dude, it's been I feel like I hit most emotions in
been a ride.
Actually. Yeah, it's been a ride. Like, it has been a heck
pretty
of a
much
ride.
Like a 4-hour golf round.
Oh God, not as This was easier.
What was what's it? I agree.
Oh, dude, yeah. Like, to put it in a nutshell, like I said, look after your close friends. Keep them nearby. And if you're going to do something, put 110% into it. But just remember, like, you need someone to fall back on as well, right? Which I didn't have. And that was hard.
I think that's brilliant, man. What you've put a bow in it, like a true presenter that you are as well. Mate, that's long overdue.
Yeah.
We've been threatening this one for a while.
Well, I think
I'm glad we made it happen.
I reckon it was Innsbruck 2022 we were chatting. So almost, and every time I'm
At
like,
least.
dude, I'm too busy. I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Because it's been, I'm flat out. And now
that's awesome.
I've got to do some work now. So this is my lunch break. So I've got to make up the hours now. So
it was work.
Busy guy.
You've got, we'll make some cool assets of it, and you can share it with old Makov.
Do it.
Mate, I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Especially for being so raw and open. Like, you obviously are aware of what it does because you did the documentary, but I know there's going to be feedbacks. You guys, and hit him up. Maybe there's an athlete that's too scared to speak to someone. Maybe you need a message chopper.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to message close honest, friends and people.
I think whilst we're on that subject, I have got a lot of people reach out to me, and a lot of big names just to talk to me about stuff. Because I do feel like mental health within our sport it's not spoken about. It's still so new because people like myself are starting to drop out who've experienced it. But then you've got Brett Tippie, who's he's gone through a heck of a lot. He's got a mega story. So reach out to that guy. We're all a tight unit, so just talk. So it doesn't matter if you're from downhill, cross country, whatever. It's all the same. We all have the same drive.
100%.
We're all exactly the same. Just because you can't tell it doesn't mean I can't talk to you. It's like I think
I can tell it. What are you talking about?
How
do you like that? How do you like that ego blast?
Yeah, I know. But
how do you like that? I did that on purpose. Technically, I have.
Yeah.
But I don't give a shit because I can't anymore, and it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I'm doing it for effect.
I know, right?
It's quick. It's funny how it creeps in, huh?
I know.
The ego, and the ego is the one that keeps you away from messaging.
I still do it now.
Fuck, I'm struggling.
Yeah. Like I was talking, we're going off topic again, but I was talking to Nikolai the other day, and then I was like, I guarantee, and I was full of rage. I was like, I guarantee it. Give me a week, and I'll be beating you, and I was dead serious. I wouldn't. But
why? Why do you give a shit?
Yeah,
it's funny, huh?
It is funny. It's just it is an ego thing. It's because I know full well if I give me a slope bike, a very short travel, 26-inch short slope bike that can bar spin, I'd beat back at Crankworks. That's my mentality,
How old are you? That's your mentality. You think it's realistic?
40. But I honestly think I could.
I think it's realistic.
Yeah, I'm small and agile enough to figure it out. If you have the right mindset, 100%.
So you still got that mindset. I don't have that drive. Someone says, "Oh, could you qualify the World Cup?" I said,
"Yeah, I still have that drive,
and I probably wouldn't try."
Yeah, it's mad, isn't it?
That's interesting. Okay, so you've got that scratch that you still somehow need to figure out and figure out if you need to scratch it. Okay.
God, yeah. So in my contract with Lapierre, I've put in there I have to do a good edit, and I've got to do it this year. But that gives me that, and the list I've got of the moves.
Okay.
So I'm still I still want to do some good stuff. So I still want to do some, not world's first, but weird stuff. Do you know what I mean? I've never seen that before.
But like chopper first, or something that pushes you. But that's the pushing out of your comfort zone thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I still want to do that, but like I said, I had a funny conversation with Nikolai, and I was like, yeah, I'd be competing. I'd still make Crankworks and stuff. And he goes, "Yeah, man, come on."
What did he say? He must
he was stoked.
But he's the perfect guy to say that to. Right? He's awesome. Yeah. Has he been injured? What's his deal?
Yeah, he hurt himself in Cannes, right? He tried to twist for the first thing, and he busted his wrist. But I think he's good now. So yeah, we'll see a lot more of him next year.
We should get him on. I should get him on the pod. He'd be hilarious to speak to.
It'd be amazing. I love
it. I'll message him after this. Yeah,
do it.
Yeah, for sure. What a passionate guy. He's done a lot for that sport. If there's a guy that's more stoked for other competitors than himself, that's unreal.
Yeah, he's such a big thing for slopestyle. He's got the full package. He's great at riding. He's great off the bike.
The energy,
dude. And he knows he's so professional, and he's so nice. I love the bloke. If I'm going to hang out with anyone,
it's authentically nice, right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and he's authentically happy for someone else. It's not. He's not doing it for the cameras
because that gets him stoked. It's like the moment he sees someone just pull a twister, he's like, "Yeah!" It makes him want to go and do one. Not out of being competitive, but just because he's just "Yeah, everyone's on my level. Let's freaking go! Let's ride this together." And I wanted
to speak to him, but just I'd love to understand it, where it comes from. Yeah. Because we see it, but I don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, maybe it stems from his dad and stuff. I don't know, being really Russian and I don't know. It's quite funny, right? But I do find things like that fascinating as well. But yeah,
mate, this has been so epic.
Yeah, it's been cool.
So they can obviously find you at Chopper Fielder on Instagram. What's the Instagram?
Yeah, just Chopper Fielder. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, and check the stuff out he's doing on Muck-Off, and obviously don't bitch about the judging because we've heard how difficult it is.
Yeah,
but he's the man trying to keep it as fair as humanly possible, mate.
You know that new Threads thing that Instagram have done? If you go on my Chopper Fielder page, I've got a little broadcast channel that I've posted on there, which says
I don't know. Are you going
Slopestyle.
to educate
You
me
know
on
this
that?
one, the Slopestyle judging. Have your say, even though you can't say anything on there. I've messed that up, but I always update stuff on there just to sort of There's a
Okay.
recent picture of Bringer on there, which people like. This is the sort of stuff I want to see at slopestyle events. Like, how do you watch
Is that where this
slopestyle?
broad? Is this where this? Do I have to join this thing?
Yeah, just join it, and then you'll see an update. It would just ping
Uh,
up like Chopper's
what a
messaged you, but it's
what a
just a,
shameless plug. Are you going to charge? Is this? Are you going to charge me?
no. It's like I
It's
just
not like $1 a month or something.
no. It's nothing like that. It's just like it's basically
Is this your OnlyFans?
yeah. Imagine.
How do you? Oh, that's cool. Then you can get guys to
Yeah, but
engage.
yeah, just
How do you
engage.
watch slopestyle?
Yeah, and then it's just like little votes. Like, how do you watch? Just so I can get a bit of an idea on the kind of people that are.
Yeah, I like that.
I just thought
Or
it'd be
like or
interesting.
watching. Yeah, I like that. I might do that for the podcast.
Yeah, do
And then
it.
I can ask like questions and stuff.
Yeah, people. Yeah, dude, you'd have to do.
Who these
polls.
people talk? Are these texts you?
Yeah,
And then
they're
people
not allowed.
can like heart them and
they're not allowed
to
to
comment. It's like a broad. Okay.
Yeah, so only you can post things on there, so they'll like it. So the only way that you could probably get them to ask you a question is if they privately messaged you, and then you can put
Yeah,
it on
wicked.
there.
Okay, I'll do that for the potty.
I think it'd be interesting for you.
That's
So,
sick.
yeah, check it out.
For sure. All right, mate. That was epic. Before everyone runs off, we are on YouTube trying to build up that channel. So if you got some value, don't you want to do us a favor? Subscribe, Moving the Needle podcast on the tube, so you can see all the awesomeness of Chopper. So that'll be great. Otherwise, leave us a review, subscribe, do all those things. I'm asking for a lot, but you're getting this crap for free. So until the next one, peace.
Yo.